Hey there, geeks and geekettes. Mass movement review time. Doctor Strange. Ooh. Okay, so this book, much like the Marvel movie collection Avengers Age of Ultron, deals with Doctor Strange in the MCU, or is a prelude to Doctor Strange, because Doctor Stephen Strange doesn't feature in possibly half the book. But the original Sorcerer Supreme and others that you recognised, Wong, etc., are all in there. Now, if I show you some of the art, obviously Calicius is in there, and he is drawn the way you would expect him to look from the MCU, which the last book didn't do. The Avengers didn't look like the actors that played them. Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark, Chris Evans, Hemsworth. The likeness wasn't there. Whereas the guy, is it Lance something, that plays Calicius, this is drawn to his likeness. Later on in the book, Tilda Swinton, her likeness is drawn as the Sorcerer Supreme. Wong is almost there, maybe not quite, but Calicius is drawn so well. So this book predates any of the events in Doctor Strange, and initially shows Calicius fighting on the side of the Sorcerer Supreme. There's little hints that there's something darker about him, but nothing major in that first part. The second book sort of continues the story. The second book then is a story of Tilda Swinton and Mordo, all drawn to look like the comic book parts. Ancient One, Sorcerer Supreme, and Mordo, Master of the Mystic Arts. And this is sort of the training and a battle they're involved in before the events of the Doctor Strange movie. And it shows more of the magical aspect. It delves into their past, where some weapons have come from that you might be familiar with from the MCU. And then when they show the powers being used, it is drawn how the MCU special effects are used and rendered. So this flows really well with the MCU, and it's got to be said, I absolutely loved this book and this story in particular, and I thought that was sort of really cool. And then we got to Marvel's Doctor Strange Prelude Infinite Comic #1, and this is all about Calicius and his life before he became a sorcerer. And without giving it too much away, it's kind of spoiler free, there's something that happens to him that puts him on the path to becoming a sorcerer, and he's desperate and he'll do anything to undo what has caused sort of damage to him. And I'm trying to find some art I can show you without giving anything away. And this is such a beautifully drawn book. I'm trying not to give away the speech bubbles because it'll give away some of the story. It's very much in tune with how the MCU looks. It's very much in tune with Calicius. These characters act, or you read them in a way that relates directly to the MCU, which is probably not an easy thing to do. And this book in particular sheds a different light on Calicius and Caecilius and his sort of reasons and his behaviour and what he does in the movie. By the end of his story in this book, you can relate to him. You can see why he went the way he did and why he turned evil. You know, if you lose everything you've ever cared about, and there is no way to undo that, it would drive a good man insane or to evil. And the book pretty much ends on Calicius forming his team that then obviously start the events of Doctor Strange. That's where the new section of this book ends, and then all the rest there is previous stories. So if you're completely new to Doctor Strange and you've never read anything, I've read bits, not a great deal. I've never read any of the stories in this book. So I sort of went into this with fresh eyes, and the only complaint I can make is I wish they'd done these stories in order. Doctor Strange's first appearance, then Doctor Strange's origin, because they were released in that sort of order, and then these newer stories, but for some reason they didn't. So the Oath Part 1 deals with Doctor Strange being shot, and obviously we've got some cameos there. Iron Fist, Night Nurse features heavily in this story. I'm not going to go too deep into it because there's massive spoilers if you've never read this story before. It's quite a hard-hitting story, I'll be honest. By the time I got to the end of it, it was one of the more sort of deep and meaningful comic books that I've read in quite some time. It deals with a very real-world issue, and I'm not talking about the shooting. It talks with a very real-life issue that affects a lot of people. I think it's 1 in 6 people are affected, directly or indirectly. But it features Night Nurse, which was a character I was only aware of because of the Netflix series. Obviously, she's not drawn to look like the Netflix version, neither is Iron Fist, because this predates. The art in this is absolutely phenomenal, and although I'm not going to go too much into the comic book, there is a full section in this book after Doctor Strange has been shot where he is in astral projection form helping the Night Nurse heal him, and you can see where this section directly influenced the Doctor Strange movie. It's almost in some places drawn scene for scene, and it's every bit as funny. When he reveals himself in his astral form to the Night Nurse, it is absolutely hilarious, much like it was in the film. So I can see why this story is in here, but I'm not going to get to the end of that story because it'll be a major spoiler, and please do go and read that story. It is such a good story. I can't say enough good about it. It's got so much heart and feeling, and most people will be able to relate to it. And that is Doctor Strange The Oath #1. Then we move into Doctor Strange 2015 #1. And this sort of tells... Now, I had a bit of an issue with the beginning of this because it shows Doctor Strange's origin, which is again shown later in the book, but him talking over the top of it. This book is absolutely bonkers. This thing is even more insane than the MCU Doctor Strange, where they did all of the bending of the cities, etc. This is definitely more into the supernatural realm. I mean, just look at it. It is absolutely bonkers. It is out there crazy. But again, really enjoyed it. Again, not going to give any spoilers. So I've obviously shown you the artwork. And then we go on to Doctor Strange, Way of the Weird. Sorry, the artists on the last book and this are the same. Jason Aaron, Chris Bacalo, Tim Townsend, Alvey and Mark Irwin. So obviously the art style is the same. What I did like in this panel is obviously Doctor Strange looking over a child, and this child has a Wolverine sticker on his wall and a Spider-Man poster. So obviously the children in this world look at the real life superheroes, almost as action stars. What this book does a little bit differently is it shows Doctor Strange's mind's eye, like physically shows it. Then it shows what he sees that nobody else sees. It shows what his mind's eye sees and what he has to see every day. But I don't know how to describe this. There's so many different art styles in the book. It goes from black and white to big pink colour. Doctor Strange is borderline hipster at some point. His cape has turned into a scarf. He's wearing a leather coat. He's got a Tony Stark-esque moustache and look about him. It is... it is a totally bizarre, odd read, but really enjoyable. We do get some cameos as well from the likes of the Scarlet Witch, Doctor Voodoo, and Shaman. I love Doctor Voodoo, and it's a shame he's not in the book for much more than a sort of a few panels. This I wanted to show you. Obviously, 177A Bleecker Street. The Marvel Cinematic Universe clearly used this drawing as inspiration for what they used. So obviously we're not going into spoiler territory, so I won't give away the villain or anything like that. I want you guys to go out and read this, but please do, because check that out. That is absolute insanity. The imagination it takes to draw something like that is so impressive to me. Then we get to Strange Tales, The Wizard and the Paste Pot Pete, which is the first appearance of Doctor Strange. Obviously, he sort of predates his own Marvel comic book and appeared in Strange Tales with the Human Torch. So I'm not obviously going to review, but you look how much comic book art has changed since the 60s. So there's Doctor Strange's first appearance. I'm not going to go deep into that because either you've read it or you're going to want to read it after the review. I'm not sure. And then we get the Strange Tales, which is the origin story of Doctor Strange. It's come out a little while later, maybe the next issue, I'm not sure. And this goes through the story of how Doctor Strange got to become Doctor Strange, and the MCU did follow quite heavily from Doctor Strange's origin. The origin story in the movie is very similar but updated to this, and they've got the character right as well, which is nice to read. And I don't know if anyone else has read that. Do they read it in Benedict Cumberbatch's voice? Because that's what I was sort of got in my mind. And then there is a story from the 70s called Marvel Premiere, featuring Doctor Strange, Master of the Mystic Arts, Cagliostro, Master of Menace, Conqueror of the Cosmos. I thought the book with the mind's third eye, all that was bizarre. Basically, the premise of this book is Doctor Strange gets cast back through time and basically fights a dragon, meets up with Sir Lancelot and gets in some scuffles. Then gets cast further back and gets involved with some Egyptians. And then further back again, where he gets into a fight with a dinosaur and some sort of pre-man ape. It's just absolute insanity, and I can never remember that villain's name down there, but he was in Marvel vs. Capcom 1. And it is absolutely bonkers. It is, the drawing and the artwork is outstanding. Really do love it. And that brings us to the end of the book. We've got a few sort of, this is probably one of the more famous Doctor Strange cover arts. I've seen that a lot on posters, etc. Look at the art on this cover art. They absolutely amazing. And I look at this and I wonder why I never read much in the way of Doctor Strange, because this should all appeal to me. So whereas I marked the Avengers Marvel movie collection down because there was a retelling of a movie, this gets marked up for originality, for telling stories that influence the films. I know it's been written after, but the Khaleesi story is absolutely incredible. I absolutely loved it, and it gave more credence to why that character behaved the way he did in the MCU. The stories afterwards that directly sort of influence, you can see where the influence of the film came from these books. Obviously his first appearance, you wouldn't have a film without that, but they've lifted stuff straight off the page and it's done so well. This book is a 10 out of 10. Quite an easy 10 out of 10. The art varies so much. You can see the evolution of Doctor Strange from book to book. And I got quite excited about this book. There's so many different art styles, different ways of telling Doctor Strange's stories, and the absolute insanity, the thought and the imagination for the creature design, for the stories, for everything. I mean, this is one of the more out there Marvel characters, and this book, it is perfect. I can't sing his praises enough. Really, really enjoyed it, and didn't even know I liked Doctor Strange as much as this sort of book has made me. I'm now a massive Doctor Strange comic book fan because of this. I've got a book down there that's contained in here, which I'm not going to mark it down because it is such a well-drawn book. The Mind's Third Eye one is what I've got down there. It is absolutely bonkers. It is out of this world crazy. So, guys, Marvel movie collection, Doctor Strange, pick it up. Please go and pick it up and read it. Normally I read the back of these books up, but as you can see, this has got some sort of fading, or there was a print issue and I can't read that. So yeah, 1951. Wow. Yeah, guys, go check out this book. It is absolutely insane, and like the last one, it's only $9.99. So if you've got no knowledge of Doctor Strange comic books, this is your onboarding point. It also fills in some blanks from the films. I'm really, really impressed with this. Bearded Geek recommends. So guys, that was my review of Doctor Strange. I hope I've got across how impressed I was with this book. Please do go and check it out. Please leave your comments down below. Once again, thank you to Tim Cundall from Mass Movement for providing me with these for review purposes. I don't get paid for this, neither does Tim. Obviously, he gets these sent by publishers, and then we review them. And it's got to be said, I'm really enjoying the Marvel content. In fact, I haven't had a bad book yet. There was a book that I didn't enjoy called Moonshadow, and I think that was more my personal taste in comic book than it being a bad book, because the thing has got great reviews by everyone else except me. But hey, personal taste. So I've been your bearded geek. I have rambled about Doctor Strange for long enough. Go and buy it. Please, go and buy it. I'll catch you guys soon for another review. Thanks for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe. All that stuff that I nag you about. I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.